Hi, it's Rob Levy again with the Rob Levy Real Estate team here in Portland, Oregon. Today I want to talk about a question that's posed me quite a bit these days. Because of all of the equity growth in houses, a lot of my clients are saying, hey Rob, should I keep my house and rent it or should I sell it when I buy another house? And the answer is interesting because there's multiple parts involved in this. First off, as a real estate agent for 32 years, you'd probably expect me to say, oh no, you should sell it because that's what I do for a living. But the answer is yes, but not always. And here's why. First off, before we talk about any of this, there's two things I need to cover. Number one, you need to talk to your tax professional if you're considering any of this, and don't listen to my advice without clearing it with a CPA or your tax professional or tax preparer or whoever you use. But definitely clear it with them. The second thing that's really important to understand is that you need to be sure that you want to be a landlord. There's a lot involved with that. I'm recording this during the COVID pandemic. We actually have one of our tenants who's not paid in over a year. So you need to be prepared to handle the fact that the tenant might not be able to pay for over a year and you can't evict them. There's also other situations. I've had calls at 2 a.m. with hot water tanks leaking. I've had roofs blow off in the middle of the night. There's all sorts of stuff that goes with being a landlord. But it's extremely lucrative. The lucrative reasons are because you can depreciate the property with the IRS. You're writing off your mortgage payments and interest. Your tenants are paying your rent, and hopefully that tenant's rent is more than your principal and interest, taxes, insurance on your loan. And there's so many other things that you can do with a rental property, whether it be a local rental property or a remote rental property. So having said all of that, here's what we need to consider. Again, the question is, hey Rob, should I keep my house or rent it? So let's take a situation where somebody's got a $400,000 house, just to use a round number, and they purchased it for $200,000 years ago. They have $200,000 in equity in the house because they didn't borrow against it. And I'll even make it juicier. Let's say that they've paid off $100,000 of their mortgage, so they only owe $100,000. So they owe $100,000, the house is worth $400,000, right? That's $300,000 in equity. But more importantly, because they bought it for $200,000 and it's now worth $400,000, there's $200,000 in capital gain. This particular client that asked me this question doesn't need the money to buy the next house, and they're thinking about renting it. And again, I get this question a lot. So here's the interesting piece in this. As an individual, as one person, a single person, you're entitled, according to the IRS as of right now, to walk away from $250,000 in capital gains and not pay tax on that every 2 years. You have to have lived in the house 2 of the last 5 years. Okay? If you're married, it's $500,000. So in this particular case, they've got a $200,000 capital gain, which if they sell the house within 2 years of living in it, so you have to live there 2 of the last 5 years. That's the key to remember there. 2 of the last 5 years you have to have lived there. By the way, it doesn't need to be contiguous. You can always move back into the property for a couple of months if you've kind of blown past that date. But if you've lived there 2 of those last 5 years, in this case, they could walk away with that $200,000 in capital gains. $200,000 is a lot of money, but it's even more money when you think about that's tax-free. How do you get $200,000 in your bank account these days from working? You make $300,000. That's the only way to get $200,000 in your bank account because of all the taxes that you pay. So for this argument, let's say it's worth $300,000. The second thing to consider is if you're a married couple, the IRS allows that $250,000 to be $500,000. And I actually have clients that I've sold houses to where we've bought distressed properties, one recently, for instance, for $666,000 that we sold for $1.3 million, and they walked away with $500,000 in capital gains 2 years later. For argument's sake, that's like making at least $700,000 in income just to get the $500,000. The key point that I'm making here is it might not make sense to turn that $400,000 house, in this particular case, into a rental, even though it's an ideal rental, because he has that opportunity to walk away from that house, sell it, take that $200,000 in capital gain and not pay tax on it, and if he wants a rental, just go buy another rental. So that's the answer to the question really, which was, hey Rob, should I keep this house and rent it, or should I just go ahead and sell it and buy another one? The answer in his particular case is going to be you should probably sell that house, take your tax-free winnings, go and purchase another rental property if you want another rental property, or whatever you want to do with it. So people, please, if you click on subscribe down below, if you like my videos, I try to knock them out every 2-3 days, and I find that a lot of people tell me they're very informative. And also, if you've got a friend thinking about, wondering about whether to do the same thing, click on share and send it to that friend. So I hope I've answered your question, but if you haven't, talk to your tax advisor or give me a call, 503-906-1444, or reach out to me down below. You can click on my website and send me an email. Thanks so much for watching this. I appreciate it.